Okay, hey guys, so this is our body farm experiment by table 3, period 3. Our question was, how do certain experimental parameters affect the decomposition rate of a rat? We used a towel for our experimental parameter, and our hypothesis was that the rat wrapped in the towel would decompose slower than the other rat. We needed 2 large rats and 2 sets of Tupperware, large enough to hold the rat, and 1 kitchen towel. Our control group was the rat in the empty container, and the experimental group was the rat wrapped in a towel. So first we placed 1 rat in the empty container with no lid, and then we wrapped the second rat in the towel and put it in the other container. We put both containers outside in the box to observe the decomposition over time, and we checked twice a week for 3 weeks to observe that, and we took some pictures and filled out some data. Okay, so this was the scale that we used to track the decomposition rate. We used it to determine what stage each rat was in. Here are some picture comparisons of just what initial decay, putrefaction, black putrefaction, butyric fermentation, and dry decay look like. So first up, we have our data control group, and this was check number 1. He was fresh out of the bag. Check number 2, he started to get some skin slippage and no maggots yet, still relatively fresh. Check 3, there was a little discoloration. There's some bloating and purging of decompositional fluid. Check 4 was post-bloating. He was changing color from green to black, and there was heavy maggot activity. Check 5 was continued decomposition, and flesh began caving in on abdominal cavity. So the final check, the rat was in stage 6. There was now moist decomposition. So now we have our experimental group, which was the rat wrapped in a towel. Check 1, fresh out of the bag. Check 2, he began to get pink and white with some skin slippage, no maggots yet. So check 3, we have gray to green discoloration, some flesh still fresh, and no maggots yet. Check 4, gray to green, still no maggots, and there was some bloating. Check 5, there was abdominal gases with discoloration from green to black. And the final check, check 6, there was decomposition of tissue producing and sagging of flesh. Based on our data, the rat in a towel does indeed decompose slower than an exposed rat. This also brought us to determine that different variables can affect the rate of decomposition. Our data also suggests that decomposition will be significantly affected if it is covered/semi-protected from the outside environment. Other sources that we found to support our findings is the mummification process originally developed in ancient Egypt to preserve the body and make the deceased look the same as when they were alive. This supports our findings because our experimental group's decay occurred much slower than our control group's decay. So in conclusion, our data supports our hypothesis because we thought the rat in a towel would decay slower due to less outside elements. The only unusual result that occurred was that the control and experimental groups were each in completely 2 different stages than we had originally predicted. So, conclusion continued, because our experimental group was just cloth, it was easy to manipulate any of our own adverse effects. The only weakness of our experiment was that the rats were tightly packed with the other rats, which meant that some of the other group's experimental fluids were within close proximity to our own rats. So some more conclusion, something that might have occurred which may have compromised our reliability was that the other rats and their liquids were super close to ours, and if we could further this research, we would isolate each rat and wrap multiple rats in different materials, substances, and circumstances. And finally, we have reached the end of our presentation. Here are some references we used throughout our project, and thanks for hanging with us today at Table 3's Body Farm Experiment.